morning, and welcome everyone to Building on Dreams, Avenues for Youth's annual fundraiser presented by Alaris Mortgage. I'm Rena Sargentopoulos, anchor and reporter at KARE 11 News, and we are here at McNamara Alumni Center. We're all practicing our social distancing and our protocols, and I want to thank you for getting up this morning and joining us virtually for this special event. And I want to personally say how honored I am to be asked to be part of this event. Youth homelessness is an issue that speaks to my heart. Today, we are here to support Avenues, a local nonprofit that's mission is to partner with youth experiencing homelessness to achieve their dreams. As a community, we're going to dream, listen, and rise together in support of Avenues and the vital work that they are doing. Every night in Minnesota, over 6,000 youth and children are unstably housed or homeless. Disproportionately, those young people are youth of color and identify as LGBTQI. Youth homelessness is often invisible to us. They're couch hopping, doubling up with family members, riding the bus all night, or trading sex for shelter. All of the Youth Avenue supports have experienced trauma and poverty. These vulnerabilities have only intensified in the wake of George Floyd's murder and the pandemic. And you're going to hear from many speakers today about the impact this last year has had on youth at Avenues. We are here today to raise $100,000 for those programs, an ambitious but necessary goal to make sure youth in our community have safe housing, shelter, and the supports they need to reach their dreams. If you haven't noticed yet, of course, this is a virtual event. And now that the networking is over, I encourage you to get comfy, throw on your pajamas, make some breakfast, settle in for the next hour. At any point, if you want to pause this program, you can. And if anything pulls you away from the screen, this program will be available for you to return to at any time. In fact, we encourage you to share this program widely with the link that you will be sent after the event. And most importantly, at any time during this program, I encourage you to click the Give button in your event menu. Give generously, give boldly, and if you're able to, consider making a sustaining gift. A sustaining gift of any amount helps nonprofits like Avenues better plan for and be prepared for uncertain times, like this past year. All right, now let's get this program going. I'd like to welcome Catherine Mears, Executive Director of Avenues for Youth, to the podium.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for dreaming, listening, and rising with us today. My name is Catherine Mears, and I have the privilege of serving as Executive Director of Avenues for Youth. If there are any youth workers, healthcare workers, social workers, first responders, or Avenues staff watching this morning, I want to personally thank each and every one of you for your courageous and at times exasperating work during this pandemic. If this was a live event, I would have you rise for the applause you so richly deserve. Thank you for keeping our community safe. Avenues partners with youth experiencing homelessness to achieve their dreams. We were founded in the Twin Cities over 25 years ago by a youth who had lived experience of homelessness. She knew personally how needed, safe, youth-driven housing and shelter was in our community. She dreamed of a community where all youth had a stable home and opportunity to thrive. Since then, the need for affordable housing and support for youth has only increased. Today, Avenues supports more than 300 youth ages 16 to 24 each year. We know that one housing model isn't best for every youth, which is why our programs and supports are journey-oriented and specialized for youth's unique needs and background. Avenues provides shelter for youth who need a place to stay for a night or two, and we provide transitional living for youth who need longer, housing them up to 18 months. Through Connect, our nationally known host home program, LGBTQ youth live with community members who are LGBTQ themselves or allies. In our Young Families programs, youth can stay together in apartments while receiving family-oriented supports. And through our newest program, Abule, BIPOC youth live with members of their own community while receiving support from Avenues. Last year, 71% of youth in our programs moved into stable housing. And while I'm incredibly proud of this and the work Avenues staff is doing, I'm also incredibly disappointed that this is something to celebrate. Dream, listen, rise together. Avenues dreams of a community where all youth can thrive. But the fact is, not all youth are equally housed, equally given opportunity, or equally granted safety and justice. The need for more shelter and affordable housing has only grown. According to the most recent Wilder research data, more than half of Minnesota's adults experiencing homelessness first became homeless when they were youth. This year, Wilder predicts that more than 13,000 youth and children will experience homelessness, and that's a conservative number. Last year, nearly 90% of the young people we supported at Avenues were Black, Indigenous, and youth of color. In Minnesota, 8% of youth identify as LGBTQIA, but 20% of youth experiencing homelessness identify this way. The root causes of homelessness are glaringly obvious. Youth don't become homeless because they're bad kids or had bad parents. Youth become homeless when they are systemically pushed into poverty in a world with very little affordable housing and resources and not nearly enough compassion. This summer, many of our supporters reached out to ask us how our youth were doing during the civil unrest. Many of our youth and staff at Avenues were scared, angry, horrified, and terrified. And the truth is, some of the youth living at Avenues and some of our staff were maced while participating in peaceful protests and even hospitalized. But what I want you to understand about this is that this is nothing new. As this pandemic continues, the same disparities can be seen in our healthcare system. Being a person of color should not be a pre-existing condition, and it should not deny you housing. Dream, listen, rise together. For several years now, Avenues has been holding real talks, conversations with our staff about the realities of what staff experience and see happening to the youth we support. Often these conversations have been about racism, homophobia, and biases happening at Avenues and happening to our youth. These conversations are often painful, but so necessary. We need to listen to each other and raise up the voices of those who have been denied a seat at the table. George Floyd's murder was yet another in a long series of wake-up calls to white Americans, shining a spotlight on these disparities. As white people awaken to this reality, I urge all of us to continue the work that we've started. One of Avenues' core principles in youth work is to be journey-oriented, and that applies to our community too. Avenues is here to walk along with you wherever you are in your journey. Thank you to Avenues' BIPOC staff, youth, and board members, and to our BIPOC audience members for your leadership on this journey. I learn so much from you every day. Dream, listen, rise together. Last year, Avenues deepened its commitment to social justice through our Allies program. Allies are groups, businesses, and community members like you who are dedicated to ending youth homelessness through service, giving, and learning. Through the learning focus, Allies are having guided conversations about racism, white privilege, and systems impacting youth of color. I invite you today to learn about our Ally program and consider joining us on this journey. As a community, we can rise together. Thank you again for joining us this morning and for giving generously to youth in our community. Now I'd like to introduce Sean Sorrell. Sean is a diversity, equity, and inclusion manager at Hennepin County, and he also serves as the vice president of Avenues Board of Directors.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I joined Avenues Board in 2020 because although I have never experienced the full extent of homelessness, I have experienced home insecurities, both as a child when my family was displaced from our home for commercial shopping expansion in Baltimore, to underemployment while attending school in Philadelphia. Some have said that housing is healthcare, and I agree. I'm so proud to be part of the Avenues Board of Directors. 100% of my fellow board members are serving as virtual hosts today and have contributed to this event in multiple ways. And today would not be possible without our sponsors, table hosts, and volunteers. Most of you are probably here today because a friend, coworker, or faith leader invited you to this thing called Building on Dreams. To the host who made those personal asks and invitations, thank you for your continued support of Avenues and willingness to host during a virtual event. We're looking forward to having you back in person next year. I'd also like to thank the volunteers on the Building on Dreams host committee for your insights and behind-the-scenes work. Thank you, Sarah Blood, Eric Hackman, Alexis Cantor, Mary Burke, Kojo Bafi, Corey Falls, and Rachel Harrelson for your participation. You can learn more about the committee and committee members by clicking on the Bios tab in the event menu. And finally, I'd like to encourage you to get to know the companies and faith groups who showed up boldly for Avenues through sponsorships today. You can learn about each sponsor in the Sponsor Showcase on your event menu, and I'd like to mention a few now. Alaris Mortgage has been a partner and friend of Avenues since 2015. Lori Day and the team at Alaris showed up for Avenues not only through sponsorship, but by collecting essential supplies for youth and purchasing holiday gifts for youth living in Avenues houses. We are proud to be partners with Alaris Mortgage, our Building on Dreams presenting sponsor. We'd also like to recognize our advocate sponsor, Luther Automotive Group. Since 2014, the Luther Automotive Foundation has been supporting Avenues and has been a vital partner in creating and maintaining Brooklyn Avenues, our program in Brooklyn Park. Thank you to our friends at Luther Automotive Group who are driven to serve. Thank you again to all of our Building on Dreams sponsors. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, or performer, I should say. Joe Davis is a nationally touring artist, educator, and speaker based right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He employs poetry, music, theater, and dance to shape culture. Joe performed at last year's Building on Dreams event and is back with his band to perform his song, Dreamers Manifesto, a song that embodies the Avenue's mission of partnering with youth experiencing homelessness to achieve their dreams.
Yeah, Joe Davis here in the Poetic Diaspora. We about to give y'all a song called Dreamers Manifesto. Shout out to Avenues for Youth, empowering youth experiencing homelessness to create a world where we can all dream big. That's what it's all about, y'all. Yeah. Aha. So when they tell you that you can't, that you won't, that you shouldn't, you look them straight in the eye, y'all, and you let them know that you're gonna dream big. You tell them this right here, you say,
dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did.
we gotta dream big, dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream big. Ha. There's a fire deep inside us. Yeah, our heart is roaring like a lion. Yeah, our spirit soaring like an eagle with our fish in the sky, screaming power to the people. We know good will triumph over evil, that's why we reach high, even when we feel low. Yeah, that's right. This here is the credo, mandated to be greater than even our greatest hero. No one's as special, unique, and as rare as you. Go on and be the best you can be, I dare you. Don't let nothing stop you, don't let nothing scare you. Don't fear to die, don't fear to live, don't fear to rise, don't fear to fall. If there's any fear at all, any fear that's true, it's the fear that you might really do what you came here to do. Yeah, ha. What you came here to do is to dream big, make all your dreams come true. We say, dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream, yeah, dream big. Think I'm sleeping, but I'm scheming like I'm a genius, seeking lifetimeless achievements. Deep sea diving, mountain climbing, flying higher sky with wingless. Unifying dreams to real life, till it feels like it's seamless. It seems as if we've been jaded and deceived with trading purpose and meaning with comfort and convenience. But for what it's worth, I'm searching for creative freedom to make something out of nothing, something we can make believe in. Cause I know it takes a childlike faith to birth and raise a dream when the haters always try to change your angels into demons. So don't choke down the hopeful passion that you have inside. Don't try to tame the fire till this flame has died. No, dream wild and awake with your bright eyes open wide. But life is but a dream only if we dream alive. Yeah, if you're gonna dream alive, then come rock with us, y'all. Come on and catch this vibe. We say, dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. You gotta dream. We gotta dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. You gotta dream. We gotta dream. We the dreamers. In order to form a more perfect universe, promise to dream big, to begin a revolution, a rapid eye movement to envision vibrant, vivid images, alive and thriving with vigor and vim. As they live in us, we live in them, breathing being into things never seen or said before, resurrecting that which was desolate and dead before, stretching our imagination until it gets sore, an endeavor better than any human effort ever, yet even more, as the spirit empowers our personality with vitality, allowing our unprecedented dreams to be present reality. Then the truth will be unquestionable. The impossible will be inevitable. The infallible will be actual when our hands can hold the untouchable and intangible. No matter how crazy it seems, we will dream boldly and brazenly, courageously, strong and mighty dreams. We will dream giant dreams, gravity-defying dreams. Not fast asleep, but traveling faster than an engine catch could ever capture our dreams. Surpassing that which ears have heard and eyes have seen, we will dream triumph out of tragedy. We will dream miraculously. We will dream a masterpiece. Together forever, you and I will dream everlastingly. We will always dream. We will always dream big.
Dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream, 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 dream. We gotta dream, dream, dream. Come on, say. Dream big, dream like a little kid. Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream,
Dream, dream, dream, dream, dream, dream. Listen up, y'all.
My dreams can be your dreams too. If you still believe that dreams can come true, yeah. My dreams can be your dreams too. If you still believe,
Yeah.
My dreams can be your dreams too. If you still believe that dreams can come true, yeah. My dreams can be your dreams too. If you still believe,
Yeah.
My
Dream big,
dreams can be
dream like a
your
little
dreams
kid.
too.
Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream,
My dreams
dream,
can be your
dream,
dreams
dream.
too.
We gotta dream,
If you still believe,
dream,
if you still
dream,
believe.
dream, yeah.
My
Dream big,
dreams can be
dream
your
like a little
dreams
kid.
too.
Dream
If you
you
still
can do things
believe
that nobody
dreams
ever
come
did. We
true,
gotta
yeah.
dream,
My
dream,
dreams can be your
dream,
dreams
dream.
too.
We gotta
If you
dream,
still believe,
dream.
if you still
One more
believe.
time, say.
My
Dream
dreams
big,
can be
dream like a
your
little
dreams
kid.
too.
Dream you can do things that nobody ever did. We gotta dream,
My
dream,
dreams can be your
dream,
dreams
dream. We
too.
gotta
If you
dream,
still believe,
dream,
if you still
dream,
believe.
dream. Yeah. Dream big.
Well, I know you're clapping at home. What an amazing performance. We're so honored that Joe Davis and the band could join us today. Now I'd like to turn our attention to the listen and learn portion of our program. When registering for Building on Dreams, guests had the opportunity to ask our expert panel questions they had about youth homelessness and avenues. Now those questions have been condensed and are being used for today's panel. Now let's meet our panelists. I'm going to go down the line here and ask you guys to just introduce yourselves briefly, tell us your pronouns, your connection to avenues, and why you're so happy to be here today.
All right. My name is Mason. I use he, him pronouns. I was in the host home program through Avenues and continue to speak as a youth advocate through Avenues on the training programs. I also am a designer and a sewist. I make my masks. You can get them for $10 on Instagram. And I also make clothes and costumes and all sorts of things like that on top of my speaking that I do for youth advocacy.
Very cool.
I am Shanika Sudeth. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Assistant Director of Shelter, Transitional Housing, and Rapid Rehousing at Avenues for Youth. I just love to, number one, just kind of talk about the work that we do at Avenues, which I'm very excited, and just to continue this journey of helping our youth that experience homelessness move to their next journey in life. I know that we're a small portion of their life, but I'm glad that we're actually in it.
And I'm Janet Yates. I am a therapist and I supervise the health and wellness program. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm excited to be here because I do want to be able to talk about mental health and homelessness and our youth.
That's awesome. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. All right, let's get right into it, okay? First question. It's from Sarah Williams. What do you wish the general public understood about youth homelessness? And we're going to have all of you answer that. So Mason, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that when I was going through homelessness, everyone always said, wow, you are so wise for being so young. You've got wisdom beyond your years. When really I was traumatized. I want there to be less glorification of that. I want people to really realize that these youth, when we're young, we only seem as old as we are because we were forced to grow up way too quickly. And I think people need to be way more aware of that, and instead of being like, wow, you're so smart for someone so young. Like, you're smart no matter what age you are. We've just been aged up mentally because of the trauma we've had to go through.
Yeah. Shanika?
There's two things that I would love for the general public to know. One is that youth, they don't choose to be homeless. It is not a choice. It is because of the conditions that they have found themselves in. And two, I would also like the general public to know that it's not a quick fix. You cannot put a Band-Aid on such a huge wound and you have not taken care of the root cause of that wound. So we're looking at abuse, neglect, just trauma that comes along with that. And the last time I looked, when you take a Band-Aid off, it hurts. And so until we understand exactly what's causing that, and we may see it with our young people they'll say, oh, that youth is defiant or they're disrespectful, but understand why they're that way. You know what I mean? So what is the root cause of the disrespect? What is the root cause of them being defiant? Once we start there, then we'll be able to house them, because what we say is, yep, let's just get them housing. No, that's great. But until you actually address the addiction and the trauma, then you'll be able to house them. Otherwise, you're going to repeat the cycle of homelessness.
Janet?
I don't think we can minimize the importance of intergenerational trauma on the impact of youth and their homelessness. And everything that Mason and Shanika have said, I agree with. Trauma is a huge issue. Poverty is a huge issue. And most definitely, our youth aren't at Avenues because this is where I want to be. They don't necessarily want to be homeless. So I would like us to be able to take a broader look and look at the bigger issues that are impacting youth and why that they are homeless.
All right, our second question is from Susan Grelling, and it is for Janet. What causes youth homelessness, and how can I identify a youth at risk if they are in my child's school? Any advice on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what we've just said, the trauma, the poverty, the societal issues that are impacting everyone are an issue. How to recognize a youth who may be at risk in your child's school. Pay attention to what you notice about how they're dressed. Is there a smell? Maybe they don't have access to being able to shower or bathe themselves appropriately. Notice how they're not looking at you, or the ways in which they may not be engaging with you. And then make the assumption that if you're seeing things that seem to be about medical health or mental health, that they may not have any access to the resources that they need, and don't ignore it. Pay attention.
Shanika, you're nodding. Is there something that you wanted to add to that?
No, I agree with Janet that you do need to look at the signs, because what it's saying is that there is a cry for help. Don't ignore it, and address that. Address the behaviors. Our babies, they just don't act out. You know what I mean? Our youth, they just don't act out. There is a cause root to why they're acting out. Like Janet said, if you see them with the same hairstyle, or if you see them again with the same clothes on, or you see that they're just not paying attention in class, question that. You know what I mean? Like, and be an active listener when a youth or a child comes to you about their issues. Don't dismiss it. I think what happens is that we dismiss or we ignore the signs, and they're clear tale signs. Just don't ignore them.
And don't assume that the youth are going to come to you and say, hey, I have a problem. I need help.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to our third question. This question is from Nicholas Hara and is for Shanika. How has COVID-19 specifically impacted youth experiencing homelessness that doesn't impact youth with stable housing, and how have youth at Avenues been impacted?
That question is loaded. So I would say the difference between the two for a youth that is actually stably housed, they have had access to resources, right? So they know what the resources look like. They know that they can call Shanika to get in contact with Janet to get resources for, for therapy, versus a young person that literally, that is going through COVID-19. They don't know the resources. They're having to trust what they hear. They're having to trust what they see because they don't know us. And so not only is COVID-19, it's just the fear behind it. So now I'm stepping into another fear, which is coming over to that threshold and going into a shelter and asking for help. So I have COVID-19. I don't know what I'm walking into. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know. So all of the I don't know. It's so unknown for those who are actually coming into or experiencing COVID-19 that are not stably housed. Those who are stably housed know exactly what services are available. And they know how to navigate the system, where the ones that don't, they don't know how to navigate it. So it's all new and it's all unknown. In regards to the youth and how they're impacted at Avenues, I can recall that we had youth that were on their way to getting jobs and going to orientation. And we're, I feel like we're like their biggest fans. COVID hit. So that means that there's no jobs. There's no orientation. Distant learning for schooling. They don't have that in person that they get to go to school, like everything's computerized. And then trying to figure out, how am I going to be resourceful to have income, because the goal is for me to have employment, get me a house, you know what I mean? So if all of that's been abruptly stopped because of COVID-19, then what do we do? A lot of our young people were afraid that the resources would end, because we were literally focusing on COVID-19, like literally wear your mask, 6 feet social distancing. And I think we were so diligent on that, it was like, well, where are my services? You know what I mean? Like, what is that gonna look like for me? Avenues, and we have youth that they come back because we know that homelessness is a cycle. So they could have came pre-COVID and came during COVID, and we look totally different. So it's like, who is this Avenues now that I don't know who you are behind this mask? So just having to learn how to intentionally build rapport and intentionally give services that our young people need. So it's been challenging, but it has caused all of us to really think outside the box in regards to the youth that we actually do the work that we do for our young people.
That's awesome. Mason, the next question is actually directed to you. Irina Fersman wants to know, how do youth experience homelessness differently, considering race, gender, and sexual preference? Would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, so people become homeless for all sorts of reasons, but your gender identity, sexual orientation, race, all of these things can be a specific reason why you've ended up homeless. I know that myself and a handful of my own friends and peers have been kicked out specifically because their families didn't agree with how they were identifying, or they were experiencing abuse specifically because of how they were identifying. And once you're on the streets, the world is very cruel to marginalized people. All sorts of different people are homeless, but even within groups of homeless people, you're still an outcast within a group of outcasts. When I was in shelter, it was very hard for me to feel comfortable opening up at all, because the second I tried to, I got bullied, I got called slurs, and trying to bring those things back to the staff didn't really do much. I would like to hope that things have changed now, but when I was in shelter, they mostly would just wag a finger at the child, and then that would be the end of that. So it was very unsafe, even though the whole point of shelters, especially youth shelters, is to provide a safe space, but it can't really be a safe space if there aren't things in place to help protect our youth that have these extra barriers that they have to deal with on a daily basis.
And we can add poverty and mental health issues to that stack.
Oh yeah, it just gets higher, and the higher the stack, the more unstable it is. It feels like living in a Jenga game. Just every piece that gets pulled out and stacked up is something that makes you more unstable.
Yeah, and it's hard to live like that. All right, we want to end with some hope right? So our last question, not that it's all hopeful, we're here today because we're bringing hope, but what keeps you all hopeful in regards to youth homelessness? What is it that you hold in your heart for the future?
For me, honestly, things like this, people like y'all are what keep me going, these programs. If it wasn't for Avenues and my hosts and the people that I've kept in contact through these programs, I don't know where I would be. I was able to make so much progress from these people, and I am in such a good place now because of the people that were able to help me throughout my life transitioning. And yeah, these community events and the community itself is what keeps me going.
Yeah, that's awesome. The awareness, the programs. Shanika, what gives you hope?
Yep, I would agree with Mason. What keeps me hopeful is that the tools that we've given our young people, that now they're able to sit on panels like this and advocate for those that don't know how to advocate for themselves. Because the one thing that we know about young people is that they'll tell you definitely if you're doing something wrong, right? But then it causes us to switch, like Janet, myself, that are the ones that are the essential workers. It switches our lens and tells us how we need to navigate for them. But I think what also keeps me hopeful is anytime that phone rings, anytime I see a new youth coming in for an intake, that means that they have the courage and they want the help. And so that literally just keeps my heart smiling, because it takes courage to literally at least pick up that phone and say, do you have a bed? 2, to actually come and ring that doorbell and say, you know what, I'm the one that called. And 3, to sit down and have the conversation. You don't know us, and begin to talk about what you've been through so that we can be a part of your journey of what you're going to go through. So that keeps me hopeful.
And Janet?
Resilience. No matter what, we've got COVID, we've got individual trauma, we have generational trauma, we have families that are apart, and all kinds of other things that Mason has brought up, things Shanika brought up. And yet, in the face of all that, our youth continue to be resilient. They continue to stand back up. They get pushed down. They thought they had a job, and then that job goes away, and they get back up and they try and get another job, or they go back to school. Whatever it is, they work on their independent living skills. That impresses me, that they can, with all that's against them, they keep going, and they don't just survive, but they are resilient, and they move forward in their
thrive.
Lives. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it, Mason, Shanika, Janet. So insightful, and we're so glad that you were able to join us for this panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce today's keynote speaker. On January 3rd, 2019, Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan appointed Rebecca Lucero to serve as the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Rights.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rebecca Lucero, and I am the Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. I want to thank the Avenues for Youth for inviting me to speak today. I am grateful to be here with all of you, and I cannot wait for the day coming soon, hopefully, where we can all be together again in community. While we can't be in person, I'm honored to be speaking to you to spend this time to dream, listen, and rise together. So let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. Now, I was homeless for a while as a youth. It's not something I talk about often because the entire experience was brutal. And yet it is one of many experiences that so clearly define my life and my work. What I would do is that I would stay in some trees or bushes that were by a lake in a broken tent. I'd wait until it was super late before going to my spot, and I'd wake up with the sounds of children laughing in the beach area close by. I would pack up my car and go on my way for the day. If it was storming, I would try to find somewhere to stay. I would take turns staying on various couches, or if I couldn't find anywhere to stay, I would sleep in my car. For food, I'd buy oatmeal in bulk. I'd pour cold water over the oatmeal and eat it like it was cereal. I was so proud of myself because it was the most nutritionally dense food you could eat for the cheapest cost without access to a microwave. Now, I remember the hours I spent trying to secure food assistance, the millions of hoops, the complicated misinformation, the insane amounts of bureaucracy. And when I finally secured food assistance, I remember eating cheese and fresh raspberries. It was the best meal I'd ever eaten. My time living in the trees by the lake and couch hopping ended when I went back to school and was able to use loans to secure housing. So housing has always been something that is a big deal in my life, in all of our lives, whether we realize it or not. I was raised hearing stories about my grandma and grandpa living in California during the war. There was no housing anywhere, and people were living in chicken coops and makeshift camps, just like today. They finally got a home in public housing, but that was only because the US government put a Japanese family into an internment camp, opening up a spot for my grandparents and their kids. This is always a reminder to me of the systems of racism that permeate our lives. After the war, my grandpa was ineligible for GI bonds. Both Black vets and Latino vets were denied access to burial, medical, and housing benefits that white vets received, leaving my grandparents without the housing resources they need as they moved back to New Mexico. So having stable and affordable housing is not something that I take lightly. Also, from a very young age, I knew I always wanted to be a lawyer, fighting for justice and civil rights. My first job as a lawyer was working at Legal Aid, fighting for people whose homes had been stolen from them, with a pretty nefarious process of telling someone their home would be refinanced, but really buying it from them and renting it back just to ultimately evict them. It was horrible, and luckily it is now illegal. As I kept practicing law, it didn't take me too long to realize that there is a big difference between law and justice. Saving one home at a time wasn't solving the bigger systems issues that were allowing that practice to happen in the first place. It wasn't solving poverty or any of the other systems of oppression that were leading to housing insecurity in the first place. It wasn't addressing racism. So I eventually stopped practicing law and stepped into the policy world where I could try to do more upstream work. And I stepped into that world right after the recession. As the housing market was crashing, as there were debates about personal responsibility versus a system that was leading to the devastating results for communities across the country, it was brutal to watch so many friends and neighbors in complete agony. And so, as you can see, I love talking about and working on the importance of creating safe, stable, and affordable housing. It's deeply personal to me, as I know it is to everyone here today. I love working to intentionally undo the systems that are in place and creating something new. So now, as the commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, I work with an awesome team to make sure Minnesota is discrimination-free so that we can all achieve our vision of creating a world where everyone can lead lives of dignity and joy. This includes in housing. And that's why I'm inspired by the theme of this year's event, Dream, Listen, Rise Together. So I'd like to just take a moment to talk about the theme and in particular what it means to me. So for dreams, my dream is centered around my core value of radical love. And I am grateful to Bell Hooks for teaching me about radical love. Radical love demands that we see beyond this moment and build a world that is interconnected and interdependent. For me, radical love is about being fierce and resilient. It requires self-care and kindness. It also requires laughter, humor, and joy. Radical love requires us to understand that change is never simple or fast, although there's always urgency with everything we do. But it's important that when we move, we are listening. So listening is essential to creating the space that's needed to do the work. For me, especially in these historic and unprecedented times, COVID, George Floyd's killing, the inability to see and hug those that we love, I spend a lot of time listening to my ancestors. Listening to my ancestors helps me place this moment in the long context of history. I listen to and reflect on all the ancestors who came before me and reflect on the many historic, unprecedented, and momentous moments they went through. I listen to and understand how they kept moving forward with hope and justice built into their actions. I am grateful how they kept moving forward. And that leads us to rising together. It is with community and with the strength of those who come before us that we rise together. We build justice into our actions so that we may rise together in beautiful and resilient ways to build the community we want. We see each other as complex, beautiful beings who hold multiple identities. We do the work to undo harmful and intentional systems. It is not a secret that racism, transphobia, sexism, xenophobia, ableism, anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia continue to be persistent and pervasive. Racism, poverty, and oppression doesn't rest. It doesn't take a break, and neither should we. So with radical love at the center, we can create the new policies, the new procedures, the new practices that center community. We create home. So with that, I want to thank you for the important and justice-filled work you're doing at Avenues for Youth. I think of everyone who helped me out when I was struggling with housing. There is no way I would be where I am today without each of those people. I am grateful. The impact that you have at Avenues for Youth is far-reaching beyond what you could ever know. It is truly inspiring work, and I am grateful for all that you do. Thank you again for having me. Be well.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for joining us virtually. We so appreciate you sharing your personal story. Your passion is evident, your commitment inspiring, and your words remind us exactly why we are here today. Every year, more than 300 youth have a home and support at Avenues. From staying with Avenues for 18 months to just dropping in for a snack or support, Avenues walks alongside youth as they navigate their journey. Shantasia, a young woman who found her way to Minneapolis Avenues last year, shares her story with us now. Let's watch together how Shantasia is working toward living her dream.
Myself before Avenues I was really distraught. I was really depressed, pretty suicidal. I was really angry. But I would say now I'm more mature. I'm more hopeful. I'm a lot happier and just kind of ready for the next big thing. I ended up homeless because unfortunate things happened with my mom and her boyfriend. I had lived in an abandoned house for a little bit, so I was basically on the street, but also couch hopping. I didn't really want to keep living because I didn't see a purpose, because every day was just dedicated to surviving. Poverty doesn't give you time to actually live. It feels like you're just fighting for your life every day. Poverty is everyone's biggest demon. It's hard to get out. Once you're in, it's hard to get out of it. My first night at Avenues was really, I feel like I was more so relieved, even though I was just a little confused because I didn't know a place like that existed. But I was relieved because now it's like I felt secure. I felt safe for the first time in a year. The first person I encountered was Gary, and he was so kind. He didn't treat me like I was less than him. That's something people tend to do when you're not in a good situation. He talked to me like I was a human. I met Dominique a few months later. She was patient. She wasn't pressuring me. She wasn't rude or dismissive. She was patient. She talked to me thoroughly. She was somebody that I could really tell my problems to, somebody I could really go to if I needed any resources anywhere. I would say the number one resource is the jobs. You could really take advantage of those programs. The careers that they offered was really top-notch. It was some good opportunities. Avenues also gave me time to start school. Again, they all noticed that nursing was definitely what I wanted to do. I wanted to get in the nursing field somehow. So Dominique and Miss Shanika helped me achieve that by listening to what my goal was, because I didn't really know exactly how to do it. Avenues did help me dream. I've always known that I wanted to help people because I know what it's like to not be given a chance. I know what it's like to be forgotten about. Moving to the apartment was really exciting. They were all just as excited as I was, and they kind of gave me advice, and they were just like, yeah, we're still here. You can still reach out. They were clapping. It felt like a ceremony, but I was really excited. That was a really exciting day, most exciting day of my life. A lot of my hopes and dreams now doesn't feel impossible anymore. That's a really new feeling, and I just feel more alive. I kind of felt like a zombie when I was really far into poverty. I mean, I still have a long ways to go, but I feel like I can get out. I feel like I can accomplish everything now.
Thank you, Shantasia, for sharing your story. It is both powerful and what so many other homeless youth have experienced. Our goal today is to ensure that youth have access to resources and stability so that they too can reach their dreams. Minneapolis Avenues, where Shantasia stayed, is just one of the 5 Avenues programs working to house youth. If you haven't yet, now is the time to rise to the occasion and show up for youth experiencing homelessness. Our goal is to raise $100,000 or more for youth in our communities. Our final speaker today is a youth herself who has dedicated her time and energy to Avenues, inspiring hundreds of others to give generously of their time and resources. Mina Potheny held her first donation drive for Avenues when she was just 5 years old. And since then, she's collected thousands of bottles of body wash for youth experiencing homelessness. Most recently, Mina sought out and applied for a grant for Avenues to provide holiday decorations and candy for both Avenues houses. Please welcome our last speaker of the day, Mina.
Hi everyone, thank you for dreaming and listening this morning. My name is Mina G. Potheny and I'm 12 years old. I'm a longtime supporter of Avenues and I want to thank you for your time and support for youth experiencing homelessness. This past year has been difficult for everyone and I can't imagine going through it all without a place to call home. I started supporting Avenues when I was 5 years old. My older brother started collecting new bath towels at his birthday parties instead of gifts. He collected them for Avenues when he was only 4 years old and he still collects them to this day. His collections provide Avenues and other youth shelters with a year's worth of towels. He even tried to get me to collect something for Avenues when I was 4, but I wasn't quite ready to give up presents. When I turned 5, I decided to start collecting body wash. I picked body wash because I loved seeing all the different colors and scents. I wanted the youth to have those fun choices too, just like they did with the colorful towels. We both realized we couldn't collect enough on our own, so we asked for help from our school and local businesses. Our motivation to help others and raise awareness of homelessness even led to creating a club in our school and a citywide day of service in our town. These 2 projects have been going on for the past 6 years and have allowed us to do even more for Avenues, like winning grants for projects that provide laundry soap and other items for the youth. In our service club, we talk about using our time, talents, and treasures to help others. I'm only 12, so I don't have much money or other treasures, so I use my time and my talent. This is where I need your help. The goal for today is to raise $100,000, and I believe we can rise to the challenge. Every year, I host the body wash drive because I know that Avenues and the youth depend on it. The money that Avenues saves from buying body wash or bath towels helps them pay for other services. Just like Avenues depends on my support, I am hoping that you can make a monthly donation, especially during uncertain times like these. Monthly donors of any amount help the staff at Avenues so they know what's coming, just like they do with the body wash and the towels. A one-time donation is just as important. Your money could provide something as simple as a backpack for a youth getting ready for college, or therapy for a youth struggling with their emotions. Even though we are grateful that Avenues stayed open this past year for 24 hours a day, COVID-19 has made things a lot tougher, and Avenues has had to cancel other fundraising events. That's why I'm excited to help in this way. If I, a young person, can use my time and talents to help Avenues, then I'm hoping you all can help us meet or beat our goal of $100,000 by making a donation. You can make your gift by pushing Give Now in your menu. Thank you so much for listening to me and the other speakers, and thank you for supporting Building on Dreams this morning. Have a great rest of your day.
Wow. I just want to remind everybody that Mina is just 12 years old. A big thank you to Mina and a thank you to everyone else for joining us this morning at Building on Dreams. Please take time to explore our virtual platform and get to know Avenues, our sponsors, and the folks who made this whole event happen. Later today, Avenues will be sending out a shareable link of this program to all guests. So thank you, and please have a great day.